Welcome to the show. Appreciate you. And today I'm joined by a very, very special guest. Is the conductor of chaos, Mr. Tyler Rucker. Salute, Tyler.
How we doing? Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to talk some New York Knicks basketball and especially the NBA draft. So really appreciate you having me.
Yep, likewise. You know how passionate Knicks fans are. We're ready to get into it. If you thought the Soto army was something, then there's going to be a lot of Knicks pods and a lot of Knicks fans in your mentions. You ready?
I'm excited for it, man. I mean, yeah, the Kai Soto army can be a little relentless, but I absolutely love it. So, thanks again, CT, for having me on. I'm excited to talk some Knicks basketball. Let's get the Knicks out of the lottery next year. Let's get them in the playoffs. Let's stay there,
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to chop all of that up. We'll talk about your big board, my board as well, prospects, breakdowns, needs and fits, what you think they're going to do. And we're going to take some questions from the chat. We have a very knowledgeable, passionate chat as well in every show they represent. So salute to them. But first and foremost, I've got to say, you've been doing amazing work with No Ceilings, the whole team there. Salute to you guys. Always keeping the draft streets buzzing. And great work. How's it been so far for you?
It's been a crazy year. I mean, thank you so much for your support, and for anyone that hasn't checked us out yet, we're at NoCeilingsNBA.com, and it's been an awesome first year. The public response has been fantastic. We've basically been pumping out a piece of draft content, sometimes 2 a day for the entire season, basically 5 days a week. We're trying to educate fans on every draft prospect they can possibly manage and try to do that throughout the year, give them free coverage. We just launched an NBA draft guide a couple of days ago, and it's been awesome to see the support all year. So thank you guys for anyone listening that has supported us. If you guys haven't, check this out, and CT will back us up. He's been checking it out too, and we've been talking to him. So it's been awesome.
Look, each and every day, and I'm not just saying this, you guys have been my daily watch. Really, because I just love your perspective. You're an awesome team, and you all give different thoughts and opinions as well, which is, makes it more interesting for me. And the link is in the description to the No Ceilings draft guide that just dropped a day ago as well. So pick that up if you haven't already. And I look forward to the continued coverage and chopping it up. But without further ado, this draft, I've been saying, Tyler, is very, very unique to me. In all the drafts that I've been seeing, it has me really, really excited. From the very beginning, people were saying that it wasn't strong, in terms of top heavy, being no superstar or little to very little superstars available. But to me, the fact that it's so deep, and the fact that we can't really anticipate what's going to happen on draft night just has me the most excited. So what are your overall thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's kind of one of these traditions every year. Everyone gets scared saying that, the draft might not be as strong as we thought. And then once the draft gets closer, there's like, okay, there's some intriguing depth. And this year there is talent, like no mistake. There's a lot of talent. And tying it specifically to the Knicks, I think they're in a great spot because there's a wide range after you get past that top 5 where there could be a lot of chaos. There could be some anarchy. There could be some guys going a lot higher than the consensus boards out there are projecting. And if that happens, if there's some curveballs on draft night, all of a sudden a player might slip to a team like the Knicks, and you guys might have a really favorable board. You might have some real good options there to kind of have your pick of the litter. So I really do think this is going to be a fascinating draft. When you even get deeper into the first round, I think from about 20 to almost 40 in the second round, there could be a wide range of variance when it comes to NBA front offices and how they view and rank players. So it's going to be an exciting draft. I think there's a lot of intriguing depth all over. Maybe not the star power of the last two drafts because we've been spoiled by that, but there's really good players in this class. There's a lot of guys that can help out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's evidence in the mocks, dudes going in from the second round to the first round, then back to the second round. And I've been saying, yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of NBA talent deep into the first, early second round, way into the second round, even. And I think probably even undrafted talent. We're going to see a lot of undrafted players in the league as well. And it's just going to be fascinating to see on draft night. Fans always are saying that the New York Knicks are going to be very, very predictable, but at the same time, there's quite a new regime, Tyler, where they've done some draft night maneuvering. They've moved back a lot the last two drafts. Picked up some extra picks, made some moves, been very, very active on draft night as well. So whilst Knick fans tend to think that the front office is predictable, we really don't know what they're going to pull off on draft night as well. What are your overall thoughts on what the Knicks have done in the last couple of drafts?
Yeah, I loved what they did last year in their draft. They did a great job of letting the board kind of play out and come to them. And I think first reaction, we're always excited. Even draft fans, we're excited when the Knicks are on the board because there's always buzz, there's anticipation. What are they going to do? And I thought last year, the quick reaction was like, oh, they traded out, but it was no, they were strategic. They let players fall to them. They got some additional assets. So I like the pieces they got. I still think, Quentin Grimes is a guy that I think is going to have another big season. Like I'm excited for his next year. Deuce McBride, I love Miles McBride. I think he's going to have a big offseason. I still think he showed a lot of signs in the G League last year. I think when he gets a little bit more extended run, a full offseason, another great asset. Rokas overseas, I think he had another great year. They got some good assets. They got some good value. Jericho Sims as well. So the Knicks have shown last year they got some really intriguing pieces. Now they're at 11 this year. We'll see. They have a wide range of what they could do. And it wouldn't surprise me if they move back. It wouldn't surprise me if they try to go up. But I think this draft's going to have a lot of movement just because there's so much uncertainty. Some teams might have drastically different boards compared to the others. So they might want to make a deal to move back and get someone that they think is going to be available later. They might want to try to go up if the opportunity has it where someone's trying to trade out. It's going to be very fascinating to kind of see what options are there and what teams are trying to be aggressive and move back. But I do think the Knicks are in a good spot. They're in a good range in this draft.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You said it. It's going to be so unpredictable because, they do pick at 11. And the fact that there's San Antonio Spurs ahead of them at 9, Washington, no one can predict exactly what Washington's going to do. And like you said, all it takes is one move to cause a sliding door ripple effect moment. And then, the chaos ensues, after that as well. But the general feeling among Knicks fans, Tyler, is that, we're in a sweet spot. We would love to trade up to get that, a higher chance at getting that star with Jaden, Ivey. A lot of people are high on Benedict Mathurin as well. But the New York Knicks chances, I think they're going to definitely try to trade up as well. What the asking price is going to be, is yet to be determined. But it seems like with the CAA guy, Jaden Ivey, that is a target of theirs. Do you see him, slipping outside of 4 or 5?
He's going to be the popular name, I think, in the trade market because, if you look at the top 3 with Orlando, OKC, Houston, we're probably projecting that the top 3 is going to be some order of Jabari Smith, Banchero, Chet Holmgren. So 4 is, you could argue, is where the draft might start. That might be the pick that starts it all. Sacramento's going to have a very active phone market. Like, they're going to get a lot of phone calls. So if Ivey could get past there, that makes things interesting. Now, for the Knicks at 11, I'd love them to get someone like Jaden Ivey. Like, that would be fantastic. But it's going to probably be a steep price to get up, because when you're trying to get up to the top 6 of the draft, from almost, past number 10, you usually got to give something up. And I don't know if the Knicks are looking to basically package anything to go up. So it could happen. You never know with the top 10, because all it takes is a couple curveballs, and then someone slips, someone goes through the cracks. Now, someone like Ivey, he would need to get past probably 4 and 5. And I don't know if Detroit, there's been rumblings that he might be a little bit lower on their board than some of the other options. But Sacramento could say, hey, we're either going to trade out or go the best player available. And that might be Ivey to them. But I would think if New York wanted to get him, they might have to get in front of Indiana, who's at 6. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah. Do you think Ivey is their top target? Do you think, because there's been some news, obviously they were there at the pro day, the whole team was there, but the CAA client, there's been a little bit more buzz, but obviously there's a lot of smoke at this time of year. But I could see him being their number 1 target.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams are gonna have Ivey really high on their board. There's been rumblings some teams have him even number 1 on their board. Like, there's a lot of fans of his in the NBA and front offices, so it wouldn't surprise me. I also think when you're a team like that, you're just doing all your homework, because maybe you go do your interviews and your meetings and you just really love them, and you say, you know what, we're going to try to see if we can at least get up there, because also you might expect him to be going 4th. And if he's on the board at 6, you might try to do everything you can to get up there and make a trade, because you got to be prepared. Like, you got to be prepared for battle. If all of a sudden a guy's there that you were not expecting, you're like, we got a shot to go get him. Like, let's try. We loved him. We interviewed him. He worked out. It would be interesting. I could see them being very high on him. But it's also like, do you expect he's going to be realistically there? And it's going to be tough. They would need a lot of help, and they would probably need to make a pretty strong offer to go up. Yeah,
definitely. And that's where a little bit of some more frustration creeps in, Tyler, that the New York Knicks always seem to finish the year with a winning streak. We were around that 7-8 range before we went on a winning streak in April, and that's where that's where a difference could happen. Getting in there, but the front office, the coaching philosophy right now is to try to win games, so that has fans frustrated.
It's a tough spot. It really, I get it when you're a fan base that's, you're saying, okay, just stay the norm and we're going to be in a good range in the draft. Like, we could even get luckier, because, that 7 and 8 range has seen a couple, draft lotteries where that 7th pick jumps up to even, like, this year with the Kings, they were supposed to be down there. They ended up at 4. So you want to stay there because that's a good spot. But then you win a couple games and all of a sudden you drop back. And it's just, it's unfortunate, but I really do believe that this could be a blessing for Knicks fans. I think the way that the board shapes up, when you get to the 7th pick in this draft with Portland, from 7 to 10, there's going to be there could be some serious swing. Like, there's names that are being thrown all over the place. It could just get really wild. And the Knicks could benefit from that. If a couple teams get a little erratic and do some crazy things, the Knicks might have a prospect just fall right into their hands. Like, someone, I know we're going to talk plenty later, but like, a Johnny Davis or someone like that falls to them. They might be like, hey, we weren't expecting him to be on board. We're going to take him. We really like his skills. So I think there's going to be a lot of good options. I really do think that's a nice range for them.
Yeah, I agree. I've been saying a lot that the New York Knicks are in a sweet spot, because they can move up a couple of spots, Tyler, if they need to. I think they could get to 7. if they needed to. They've got the extra pick next year with Dallas. They've got a heap of second-round picks in next year's draft. They've got some young pieces that they could package as well. Not that I want to package anyone in particular, but Cam Reddish's name is mentioned a lot because the Knicks are going to have to decide to pay him as well. The Lakers are pretty high on him, by all reports. So, yeah, I think the Knicks have the assets and some flexibility to make some moves, and I completely agree. I see them being very, very active. And in terms of your sort of top 10 as well, I know it's changing frequently as well, but is there anything that you can share with us on your the top 10 prospects before the Knicks pick at 11?
Yeah, of course. I'm not afraid to tell you anything that you want to know. When it comes to my top 10, I've had Chet up there for most of the year at number 1. Right now I've got it Chet, Paulo, and Jabari. That's my top 3. And then I've got Ivey and Keegan Murray 4 or 5. And my 6, 7, 8 is Johnny Davis, Shaedon Sharpe, AJ Griffin. And a guy that I absolutely love for the Knicks that I have him 9th, but I think he's got a real shot to be there is Benedict Mathurin of Arizona. And to round out my top 10 is Dyson Daniels. So there's going to be some good pieces there for the Knicks at 11. Like I know I rattled off those names of the top 10, but guys like AJ Griffin could have a wide range. They could go as high as 6. They could be on the board when the Knicks are picking. Benedict Mathurin, same story. Dyson Daniels is a guy that could be going 8th, or he's been getting top 5 buzz. There is a lot of names that just could be going everywhere. Jalen Duren could be in the top 10. He could also be outside of it. Ousmane Dieng from the NBL in Australia, he's been a popular name. He might be in the top 10. He also might be right outside of it. There's a lot. Like if you ask teams all over, there's a lot of variance in opinions. So if you're a team like the Knicks, you're thinking, hey, all it takes is one team to maybe swing on a guy ahead of us that the board falls in our favor. So I really do think they've got a good chance of getting a really good asset, something they need, because I know we're going to talk about it. Like I would love the Knicks to get some perimeter help on the wings, especially to help RJ Barrett. Yes. And there's good options in that range, like Johnny Davis, Malachi Branham, if AJ Griffin's even there, Mathurin. There's going to be some good names there.
Yeah, we're going to get into them. Absolutely, ladies and gents. Salute to the chat, everyone out there. Appreciate you all. And Tyler Rucker joining us from No Ceilings TV and Backcourt Violation, the conductor of chaos as well. Very, very kind of you to join us. And completely agree. If I've learned anything out of every draft is that there's always a shocker. There's always a shocker. Nothing is promised until the night. Nothing is promised until the night. And I mentioned before the San Antonio Spurs pick, they're in need of a big man. There's no secret they're in need of a big man. There's a couple of nice big men, which we'll chop up later as well. But that's just one example. Some teams may go need over best player available, which then tends to throw the draft in different directions. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. That's where the wild cards start happening with the draft, is if a team tries to target need, and that's what it could happen. There's guys also like Shaedon Sharpe that teams are a little cautious about because they don't, he hasn't played since high school. He just sat out the entire year at Kentucky after reclassifying. And there's just a lot of questions. So he could be a name also that slides a little bit. I don't know if he would get to the Knicks range, but the more he slides, then all of a sudden somebody else would slide. Jeremy Sohan's been another guy that's buzzing that he could be in that top 10. So, we've rattled off like 15 guys that could, I'm saying they could all be top 10 picks. It's going to be really, really interesting. This is a crazy year because there's just so much variance with how teams see some of these guys after the top 4, top 5. And, some teams in the later part of the lottery, like the Knicks, could benefit from it. So it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I'm not against moving down, and I know some Knicks fans are, and we're going to chop that up a bit more with the scenarios. But we have a super chat from Buzzer Beater. Salute, appreciate you. And they know I'm down under as well. What's up with Kai Soto as well? Great question. I'm actually going to have a guest on that covered the NBL. soon. So that's a dime that I can drop now as well. So look out for that moving forward. But yeah, Kai Soto is starting to get more buzz just because of his tools, Tyler. The Knicks need a big man that can shoot. I've been saying that for a little while. And the fact that he can protect the rim some and shoot as well. What do you see Kai Soto's game, his ceiling getting to?
Yeah, he's been there's been some jokes in the draft community just because the Kai Soto army is so faithful, and it's not like we're ever bashing him, but it's just one of those. He showed some signs at the end of the year, and I thought maybe some people were expecting maybe he might spend another year developing on his game in the NBL. It'll be interesting. At No Ceilings, we always say, like, we're never rooting against any prospect ever. We're always wanting them to succeed. So that's why some people are like, you guys aren't rooting for them. And it's like, that's not true at all. It's just, we want them to get their game to the best possible spot to take the leap to the NBA. So I think he's going to be very raw. I think some teams are doing some homework because they might have thought he might have had another year of development before he was really going to take that next stride. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see what's in store for his future if he keeps his name in the draft. And I think June 13th might be the deadline. So for international guys, so we'll see what happens. But I think there's some raw, intriguing tools there.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm also going to chop up the other NBL prospects, like you mentioned, Ousmane Dieng, Hugo Besson, and Ariel Hukporti. Stayed in the NBL. But I'll add my thoughts in terms of being down here, seeing the NBL. It's no secret it's produced NBA talent, and I will say, it's a great professional league. It grooms players for the professional game as well. I think it's a better learning experience than college, obviously. And I think Kai Soto, based on what I know about the NBL, I would ignore the numbers. I would ignore the minutes, all those kinds of things, because that's really not going to have any impact over what a player can be in the NBA. I know he didn't get as many opportunities as some people like with the Adelaide 36ers. And for that reason, I say that expect him to still be able to come in the NBA and contribute as well. How soon, I don't know, but he's definitely got great NBA potential, I would say. Just keep working on his game. The shooting, it's a skill that a big man, it never goes out of style. You can stretch the floor and block shots. You'll always have a home in the NBA as well. So yeah, I'm absolutely rooting for Kai Soto. Look forward to seeing what more comes of it. The New York Knicks worked Kai out, Tyler, about I think a week ago as well. So he's obviously on their radar. They haven't announced, which is really intriguing. The Knicks haven't announced many workouts yet, which has some fans thinking that maybe they're planning to trade the pick. I still think it's a little bit early, and I think they've been burned in the past by leaking a lot of interest. The whole league knew how much they wanted Chris Duarte, Trey Mann, and they were unable to move up just because how desperate they looked.
Absolutely. It's a really important part of the draft is you don't want to, get too obvious with what you're targeting, and everyone knows, what kind of cards you're having at the poker table. So, it's going to be interesting to kind of see what direction they go in this year, because I think a lot of people last year were expecting them just to potentially try to move up to get Duarte, and instead they let the draft come to them and traded back. So we're going to have to see what direction they want to go this year.
Yep. And while we're on it, J Dub, great question. Hugo Besson,
yes,
looks good at the 42. I'm pretty high on Besson.
I really like Hugo. I've had him on my radar since last year when he looked like he was potentially going to put his name in the draft, playing over in France. And then he announced he would go play with the NBL with the New Zealand Breakers. And I think he's a combo guard with some swagger. He can really play tough. He's got a little bit of attitude in a good way. And he's not afraid to shoot it. Like, he can get hot and stay hot for a while. He's your type of microwave scorer. So I like Hugo a lot. He measured a lot bigger than I think some people in the draft community were expecting. He looked like a guy that was going to average or measure around 6'2", 6'3". He was almost around 6'5". So
yeah,
that was a shocker. Everyone was like, whoa, okay, that's a big number. So, and he showed some flashes there. So I think Hugo could be a bit of a sleeper in this draft, especially if he went to a team like the Knicks. That's a great developmental project. If they could get him in the second round, he's got some real nice upside to be a rotation piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I go back to the NBL again. It's a physical league, grown men. The standards improved each and every year. There's the Next Stars program as well. And we'll talk about Usman Jiang later as well as we chop up the wings as well. But yeah, in terms of that situation, Tyler, you mentioned RJ Barrett. So let's start getting deeper into the Knicks' needs and what you think will fit well. I'm of the mindset that the New York Knicks are building from ground zero, that they have very, very minimal building blocks or untradeable guys. But with that said, I'm of the mindset if the Knicks take a wing, which I think they should, and we'll talk about it more, if they do pick that wing, I think it means RJ Barrett will have a breakout year, because we saw this year he had to defend the best perimeter wings, Tyler, each and every night. And that just took away his energy on the offensive end. And I think if the Knicks drafted, for example, Tari Eason, Jeremy Sochan, I think I can expect a breakout year from RJ Barrett. That's what I think will happen.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating. I think the Knicks are kind of heading into an important offseason where they got to make some decisions. And the first thing is going to be with the drafts. Like, they need to get a really good piece that I think the priority should be complementing RJ.
Yep.
Whether they want to get someone like Sochan, what you said, or they want to try to get kind of like an off guard that could be a catch and shoot weapon. Maybe let RJ have the ball a little bit more in his hands. Someone could spot up and be a threat. That's like the guys we're talking about with, AJ Griffins, the Benedict Mathurins, even Malachi Branham would be a really, really good option for the Knicks that I think could be there. So I think my priority for them would be getting RJ a running mate on the wing, like get him some assistance, get him some help. Because last year they got some really good pieces. They got some developmental pieces that I think are going to take the next leap next year. Quentin Grimes, I was very high on. I think he's a tough player that every rebuilding team needs. And I'm not saying the Knicks are a complete rebuild, but I'm saying when you're trying to contend every year, you need a guy like Quentin Grimes that is just going to be physical, play good defense, play hard, and he has the tools to really be a nice weapon when it comes to spacing the floor. Like I said before, I still think Miles McBride's going to be good. So I think they got a lot of pieces. Manuel quickly, we haven't even brought up yet. But I'm like you. I think if they get some help on the wing, that's going to be something that could help the Knicks take that step forward again. Like, they got to the playoffs last year, came a little bit back down to earth. I think if they got the right wing and they could hit on that, it could get them back towards, racing towards the playoffs.
Yep. Yeah, that's where my philosophy kicks in, Tyler, in terms of not overthinking it. The New York Knicks missed out on Mikal Bridges and Miles Bridges at the wing, and that's left that hole to this day at the wing spot. Kevin Knox had intriguing upside. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. He was too much of a raw project in terms of development in the New York environment. But yeah, I feel like if the New York Knicks shouldn't overthink it, they should get that wing this year. And I'm very, very high on Mathurin, Johnny Davis, Tari Eason, Sochan, and Malachi Branham. Like you said, and of course, Dyson Daniels as well. I mean, like you said, there's so many names. It's like, it just seems like they can't overthink it and mess this thing up. Do you see the Knicks just looking at it that way?
I think so. It'll be, you could always expect a curveball, and that's what we like to try to do at No Ceilings, where it's kind of educate everyone about, like, hey, we're not saying this is going to happen, but prepare yourself in case there's a bit of a oh my goodness moment. I like Branham there a lot. That would probably be one of my little wild card preferences. I like Malachi Branham there a lot.
Me too.
And maybe the board doesn't go the direction that they want it. And I think the Knicks could be a team that maybe goes back and targets someone like Jalen Williams. Like, he's been a popular name in the draft cycle, and he can do a little bit of everything when it comes to, he can use the ball as a playmaker. He can catch and shoot. He can space the floor. He's got some versatility offensively, and he's got some upside at defense. So I think there's going to be a lot of names that they can consider. Even a one that probably Knicks fans wouldn't love, but someone like that is Ochai Agbaji from Kansas. He's probably at the bottom of the list, but if you're looking for a 3-point weapon who can play tough defense and he's going to play as hard as possible all the time, he's also another one. So, I mean, there's going to be 5 or 6 potential wings that they could target. It's just going to come down to the front office figuring out which one do they want, which one do they want to add next to RJ. I still think Branham, is probably one of my favorites. Mathurin, I think Knicks fans would just absolutely fall in love with. I've got this. Yeah, and it would just be, he's nasty. I've seen him live a couple times this year in person, and he would be a Knick favorite quickly. So, I mean, he's tough. He's very tough, and he loves the battle. So,
and that's what Knicks fans love. They love a tough player. Like they say, give us a dog, give us someone that's rough and tough, because it's a very, very different market. Players don't really know what it's like to play in New York. Julius Randle was most improved All NBA and was getting booed off the court the next season. So the Knicks fans are unforgiving. It's, what have you done for me lately? Or play hard and we'll always support you. Just play hard. That's it. We'll look past abilities at times. The New York Knicks have hyped up players like Ron Baker. They've hyped up Emmanuel Mudiay. They've hyped up Ramon Sessions. We just, we want talent, and we'll support someone that plays hard. But yeah, in terms of the wings, like you said, Benedict Mathurin, I think he's got to be high on their board, absolutely. And Malachi Branham is actually in the 11th spot at my board, which I'll just pull up for you to see as well. My big board 2.0, Malachi Branham I have as the 11th prospect, fitting right there for the New York Knicks. Obviously, Johnny Davis, AJ Griffin, Dyson Daniels could slide as well. But yeah, we'll chop that up more. But Ousmane Dieng, and you mentioned Ochai Agbaji. I've spoke to a lot of Knicks fans, Tyler, that are actually rooting for Ochai. They're actually high on him, coming to the Knicks. And he would fit their philosophy. They like an older player that's ready to come in, has a ready-made skill set in the NBA. Tom Thibodeau, is going to love that. So yeah, you mentioned that name. I could see that happening.
He's a player that got better every year at Kansas. He's tough. He really can shoot. And I'm talking movement shooter, coming off screens. He can shoot from deep too, like beyond NBA range. And he's also one of those guys, he'll go put some tip dunks in, and he's a highlight machine, and he really battles defensively too. So I think Ochai Agbaji wouldn't be like the sexiest upside pick, but he might be exactly what the Knicks need. He might be just this guy that comes in right away. If you're talking about a guy that's going to play and always play hard that Knicks fans are going to support, Ochai Agbaji would be right there. I mean, he is a relentless worker. I know when he was at Kansas, he spent some time training with Damian Lillard and Lillard's trainer. And Lillard's been one of the most, infamous training regiments of any NBA player. And he spent time with Agbaji. They got to know each other. He's worked with them. So Agbaji knows what it takes to be one of the top players in the NBA. And he's seen guys like Lillard with that high work ethic. And you saw that because then he went back to Kansas this year. He was absolutely outstanding. He was one of the best players in college basketball. I know he's older, but that's the type of pick that if you're a team looking to take the next step forward and you add Ochai Agbaji, that is the right pick. Yep. He's going to be just a player that really sticks and helps you out.
Yep. Yeah. And it goes into my philosophy not to overthink it.
Right.
Pull off a guy that can produce in the NBA, or you have very little to no doubts can produce. And what you said about Ochai's trajectory, I think that matches similar to what Emmanuel Quickley in his second year with Kentucky. They love a player that improves that drastically from the first year to the second year, or from one year to the next as well. That shows that the player has growth. They're working on their game, and and they're committed. They're committed to this thing. And yet, like you said, the Knicks need the shooting off the movement. Quentin Grimes, I'm as high as you are on him as well. I think he has a big future in a rotation for the Knicks. I think the fact that he's 6'5", 6'4" and a bit, limits him a little bit. And in terms of the athleticism, but yeah, Ochai would add that.
Yeah, if they had Grimes and someone like Ochai Agbaji that's two tough wings that really would just battle for the city of New York and for Knicks fans all over the world. They would just bring it every single night. They wouldn't complain. They would just, what can we do to win? And I think, like I said before, it wouldn't be like the pick that you're thinking, oh, the upside's awesome, but it might be exactly what that roster needs. That you get another wing to help out RJ Barrett. Grimes has the ability to be a good outside shooter. Abaji can light the net on fire. Like he gets scorching hot from outside. Like he has that tools. It's just, if he was 6'7", he'd be a top 10 pick. But he's 6'5", he's stocky, but he's got length and he plays really tough and smart. And he's always going to battle. Like even if his shot's not falling, he's going to go rebound. He's going to defend. He is a grinder. So it's one of those options that I think a lot of people aren't talking about when you consider mainstream big boards, but that could be one of those curveballs that, at first reaction, Knicks fans might be like, oh, and then when you start realizing it, it's a really, really good fit. Yeah. So that would be my, outside of the box one that I think would make a lot of sense.
Well, yeah, he wins, and I just love a player that wins. His team won the national championship, and another rumored player, Jalen Brunson, who's getting Nick buzz, won a national championship. Sometimes it ain't the sexy name or the sexy move, but that's what's undone the New York Knicks in a while. We took a gamble on Kevin Knox, and that's all my argument is towards Knicks fans, is just to take the sure thing. Don't overthink it. It's better to come out of something in a draft than come out of empty-handed. Take so much of a flyer that you just left with nothing in 2 years' time. That would be catastrophic.
Yeah, especially in that range, if you swing for the fences and try to go after a raw prospect just because you think they have this crazy upside, if you miss, you run into some trouble. Like Kevin Knox was a big swing. It just didn't work out with the Knicks. And then that kind of, now they're in the same boat of like, okay, they need another wing. They need another guy that could really be a nice asset. And Grimes looks like he's going to be a good rotation piece, but you need someone else. Like if they got Johnny Davis somehow, I think that would be one of my favorite fits in the whole draft. Now I know every Knicks fan is going to say, well, he wasn't a great 3-point shooter, but Johnny Davis put that Wisconsin team on his back, and they did not have a ton of talent around him. And he is a guy that he might run through a brick wall for a team. Like he is that competitive and he plays so hard defensively. I think he's going to go to the NBA and be an even way better player just because it's not going to be all on his shoulders. But, Mathurin, Malachi Branham, there's going to be a lot of options.
Yeah, definitely. And I understand Nick's thinking as well. They want a guy with huge upside and that can be that superstar or star building block with RJ. I do too. And I think that is the New York Knicks' first option. I don't think they're going to come into the draft, Tyler, and chat thinking, oh, let's move down. That's our first option. I think that happens on draft night when the things play out. They maybe try to move up. They try to get a Benedict. They try to get Dyson. They try to get Johnny Davis or AJ Griffin. Or Ivey, and then you see where the chips fall as well. But in terms of the wings, you're very high on Malachi Branham, and I am too. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on, he's 19 years of age. He was a freshman. I see the huge upside, and I hope the New York Knicks do too in that selection.
Yeah, he's a name I think will probably be there. He's been buzzing for a very long time. He was putting up some impressive numbers for Ohio State this year as a freshman. He wasn't highly recruited coming out of high school, but he was looking like a guy that was probably going to be for the 2023 draft. People were like, okay, this looks like a guy that could come back, really explode, sort of like what Jaden Ivey did. He impressed during his freshman year, then all of a sudden went back, really saw his stock take off. But then Branham just was putting up numbers that were so impressive, and he's just such an offensive weapon that it was like, okay, he's ready this year. And now he's coming out. He's been buzzing all year. He's looking like a lottery pick now. Really lethal in the pick and roll. He really can shoot it too. He's a catch and shoot weapon, but he's patient with the ball in his hands. He creates angles. He attacks. He's patient. He understands how to find teammates. Lot of upside. But the thing with Branham is, while he develops that, he could be a great asset for RJ Barrett as a catch and shoot guy because he's got a short stroke. It's smooth. It's quick. I really like that fit. I think that would be a great pick for the Knicks. Like, he has upside defensively and he has really freakish length. Like, he had a great wingspan when he measured, but he's going to need to be coached defensively. And it's not saying he's bad. He has some fundamental stuff he's got to clean up because he has possessions where he's pretty dominant and he has the ability to lock guys down. It just needs to be a little bit more consistent. So when you're talking about Branham, if he went to the Knicks, I would absolutely love that. But I also think, there's some other teams that could be intrigued with them. So like we said before, if you're looking for a wing, all it takes is one team to pass up or take the one you don't want, and the Knicks could find exactly who they want.
Yeah, a team with patience would fit well so much. And I think the Cavs might be sneakily hoping that he slips to 14. He's an Ohio native, right?
Right. Exactly. Like that's exactly what could happen. The Cavs are probably looking for a guy like him or Ochai Agbaji maybe to be on the board. And the Knicks might be looking the same way. So it's gonna be crazy.
Yep. And another wing, make your case for AJ Griffin, because Tom Thibodeau, there seems to be a connection there. He's CAA as well. AJ Griffin, I could see him definitely being there at 11.
He's going to be one of these guys on the draft night that it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see where he ends up, because his range is getting a little interesting. It could be as high as 6. It could be where he's on the board when the Knicks are picking. But AJ is one of these guys that I think a lot of people he had some high school injuries to his knees. Coming into the year, a lot of people thought he was going to be a top 5 pick. And from what I've been told from talking around to some people in the industry, they think that the injuries to his lower body were a little overblown. He just had a slow start to start out the year. And then if you're looking for a guy that can, help out RJ Barrett on the wing, AJ Griffin can shoot the cover off the ball. Like, he has that potential. He showed it this year, and it's not just a 1-year thing. He's been doing it since high school. Like, he's had impressive numbers shooting the ball from deep since high school. So I think he has a lot more offensive game to showcase than he was able to this year. Like, he's very dangerous in isolation. He would be a nice weapon. Like, if the Knicks could get him at 11, it would be a very, very good pick. It would be a steal. He's going to need some work defensively, but he's ripped. He's looks like the Incredible Hulk as a wing.
Yeah, I've seen.
He just needs some coaching, but the upside's there. That's a star upside. He just needs to go to the right team that lets his game develop.
Yep. Yeah, you mentioned that star upside. I think he's in a rare category for the Knicks this draft, where he satisfies a little bit what the coaching staff will want in a guy who can produce straight away, but he also satisfies some of the people who are hoping for a upside of a long-term star potential as well. And you can't ask for anything more at 11. So if he slips, definitely, I think the medicals will play a huge part in that, because I think Tom Thibodeau really likes him. He may not have the final say, of course, but he'll if he's on board and the front office is on board, that could be consensus as well. And let's chop up Dyson Daniels. He could be there at 11, although that buzz recently, Tyler, that Dyson might be top 5. I could see it happening, but I probably see him more in the 6 to 11 range. How about yourself?
Yeah, it was very interesting when Jonathan Givony from ESPN came out and said, that he's getting some top 5 buzz, because Daniels has been a popular name throughout the year, especially when you talk to scouts and people in the industry. They said, hey, we've been buzzing about Dyson Daniels. And you understand why. When you watch his whole film this year from the G League Ignite, there's a reason he was even buzzing when he was an Australian product, when he was, overseas. International scouts were talking about him. He's a really smart player with great size, measured around 6'7.5", I believe, at the combine. And he's feisty defensively, but he's also just a really smart player. Like, he plays the game with great feel. He understands how to attack at the right spot, get his shots. Like he could post up smaller defenders. He can also space the floor. The outside shots showing some promising signs. I think the top 5 would still shock me a little bit, but he's going to be a popular name, and he's continued to buzz. And this time of the year, when you're buzzing that much, there's going to be some teams that really want to get you in, want to draft you. So he could go 6 to, like you're saying, 6 to 11 anywhere. I would not be shocked. I think he's going to be a popular name. I think if the Knicks wanted to get him, they might have to go up. They might have to try to make a deal with someone like Portland, or, maybe he's on the board at 9 and then the Spurs want to go a different direction, and maybe they just swap to go up a couple pieces or picks. It'll be interesting, but he's got a talent. He's really special. If the Knicks could get him, that's a really, really fun weapon to have.
Yeah, great point. You mentioned the defense. I think if the Knicks have forged any kind of identity under this regime and Tom Thibodeau, it's their priority on defense as well. It's very, very rare that they'll select a player that's just purely offensive minded. And I'm definitely looking at the player that they pick. If it's not Jaden Ivey, of course, to really have a strong defensive part of their game as well. The timidness, a little bit of the knocks on Dyson's game is that his offensive game isn't as polished. The handle needs to get tighter as well. He's limited offensively at the moment, things like that. I think his upbringing, his father was a baller, played for NC State. The fact that he's from the NBA Global Academy as well, I think he's going to find himself a home in the NBA. I think the top 5 is a bit overrated for me. I think his fit should be somewhere around the 8, 9, 10 range, if I'm being honest. I really do. I'm really high on Dyson, but I struggle to think it's a good move taking him, ahead of 8.
Yeah, that's why we've been talking about it throughout the whole time. Like, you get past that 5th pick, and the draft could go in so many different directions. I mean, Shaedon Sharpe could go there, or Dyson Daniels could go there. It's really going to be interesting. But your point exactly, CT, about like the defense, Johnny Davis, Daniels, there's going to be guys like that if they're on the board, that's exactly the type of players the Knicks would want with offensive upside. So it'll be fascinating. And just like JW, the chat just said, like, Jalen Duren, we haven't even brought up, and he easily could be a guy that goes in the top 8. Like, someone's going to be in love with his upside. So if that happens, someone's slipping right to the Knicks laps. Like, it just has the potential to happen. They're going to be in a good spot. Yeah,
good segue, because I'm not as high on taking the big man as well. I understand their potential, I understand the need. And this is regardless of what happens with Mitchell Robinson, which we'll talk about the Knicks roster a bit later in the show. But, talk to us a bit about Jalen Duren and Mark Williams as well. What's the highest you could see both of those two going, and I guess the lowest that would go?
I could see them both being on the board when the Knicks pick, but I could see Duren going pretty high because he's about 6'10", 6'11". He's 250. He's all muscle. He is the youngest player probably in this draft.
Yep.
And Duren, I think, has got a freakish wingspan, and he's very raw. But the thing with Duren is, he was supposed to be a freshman next year. He reclassified, so he's supposed to be a high school senior still. So he could go early because he has athletic tools. He could be a shot blocking freak. There's going to be a lot of people that say he's Dwight Howard, a younger version of it. I'm not there yet, but he's got a lot of interesting tools. Someone could easily buy into him. I like Mark Williams a lot. I think if we've been talking about all these wings for the Knicks, if the Knicks are going to go a different direction, I know everyone might be rolling their eyes. I could see Mark Williams being in that conversation because he plays so hard and he is a force around the basket. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Mitchell Robinson, but Mark Williams could be, no one knows, but Mark Williams could be the cheaper replacement. And I think he's going to be a guy that plays in the NBA for a very long time at a high level. He is a lethal defender, and he's going to bring it every single night. So if they don't go wing, he could be an option to consider, especially if he's on the board. But he's also been a popular name too.
Yeah, here's where I wouldn't be against Mark Williams. If the Knicks move down, let's say they got the Charlotte picks 13 and 15. If we could get Mark Williams and Ochai Agbaji, or Mark Williams and Branham, Mark Williams and Barchomp, or just a wing and the center, I think that could be a huge win.
Absolutely. I mean, it would be nice to have 2 picks in the top 15. I feel like everyone's a little jealous of Charlotte right now because they're like, man, they could get some good pieces. So I hear you. I agree.
And they're stacked with young talent already as well, which I guess we all break down the big board and where players rank among other players. But what a lot of people can't really comprehend is the log jams on certain teams and maybe other teams thinking, who knows what Charlotte may want to do, OKC want to do with their 3 picks. I know you've had headaches at No Ceilings trying to think about what OKC are going to do. Maybe they try to consolidate and move on from 2 picks to move up and get a higher pick, which then causes a ripple effect and lets another team swoop in and get a really high value player as well.
Yeah, it's funny because everyone always talks about like, oh, this team has 3 picks in the first round. This team has all these selections. And sometimes it's like, they don't want that. Those are just lottery tickets to see if they could get a high draft pick. But that's also 3 roster spots. So that means like that team has to figure out a way to all of a sudden create 3 potential openings on their roster. Some teams have full rosters. So it creates some headaches, which that might be why a team looks to unload one of those picks for a future asset. OKC does that a lot. The Knicks were doing it last year with kind of moving down, trying to create future assets to continue building their roster, building their organization. So you never really know, but you're right on, because you could create log jams when it comes to positions, which is also why some trades happen where it might be a higher pick and a player to unload to another team to come up and get that pick to basically take on a contract. You never really know. Charlotte has those 2 picks, but they also have guys that they might try to package to basically unload a contract. It's always some strategy when it comes to the draft and roster construction, but that also could be where the Knicks benefit from. Like they could be like, hey, okay, if there's some chaos in front of us or around us, we might get another good player for us.
Yeah, you mentioned the chaos word, and I've been saying too, it doesn't start until everyone's in their war room. Every team's in the war room and the clock starts ticking. They're on the clock. And then you got all these options. You got teams calling you, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And then you might have your eyes set on making a move. And then all of a sudden, oh, this sounds too good to refuse. And
exactly.
It's like, we don't see what goes on there.
Well, everyone has a plan until they're on the clock. And then I think you have to be able to adjust in a hurry, because you might have had a plan and been talking to teams for months about like, hey, if this guy's on the board, we want to trade up, or if this guy's here and maybe we want to trade out. But then someone might call you when it's on the clock because they're like, we got to get this guy. And then you get an offer that's too intriguing to pass up. Off the top of my head, OKC got it last year when they were picking, I think it was 16th. And all of a sudden, so the Rockets said, hey, we'll give you a future pick if we can get that selection, because they wanted to take Şengün. Presti said, yeah, we'll take a pick next year instead. So you never really know. You could get just an offer that's too good to pass up. And maybe the Knicks also get to draft day and someone's on the clock and they can move up where they get a guy that they weren't expecting.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. We've got some more scenarios to chop up in terms of the Knicks trade the pick, Tyler, as well. But chat's on fire. Salute everyone. We're joined by the conductor of chaos, Tyler Rucker from No Ceilings, Backcourt Violation. Let's keep the buzz rolling. And 3 wings we got to chop up. Usman Jiang, Tari Eason, and Jeremy Sochan. Because if it's not the Benedict Mathurins or the Ivies, those are the next group of guys I have, or the Johnny Davis, for the Knicks. I'm really high on Sochan and Eason, Tyler, because for the reason we said earlier, they will take the best wing off RJ Barrett's hands, and that'll allow him to have a monster year. And the size, you can't teach size. Where do you see their games at?
Sochan is going to be a popular name. He's getting some top 10 buzz. He's got that versatility that the Knicks would probably love, but he's got to work on his outside shot a little bit, but he has playmaking. He has versatility. He'd be a really nice piece. He'd be something that could help the Knicks take the next step forward. Just a physical rebounder that's really versatile and gets after it. When you're talking about someone like Tari Eason, he was really impressive for LSU this year. He did a lot in a limited time. He was coming off the bench. He has these tools to be a very, very good defensive asset. Both of those guys are really, really good defenders. I would probably say Sochan has better upside when you're talking about like talent and complete versatility. But it's going to be interesting to see moving forward. I really do think those two could be in that conversation for the Knicks. I think Eason might be a little bit lower on their board, just because just the buzz you're hearing. He might go a little bit later than that, maybe like late lottery or somewhere around that range. But Sochan's a hot name right now. I could definitely see that. Ousmane Dieng could definitely be in that conversation. You're talking about coming into this year when he announced he was going to go from France to playing in the NBL. A lot of people were a little interested because of how physical that league is. And he's thin framed. He's young. The first half of his year, if you watch the tape, it was brutal. It was tough because he was just looking a little lost and trying to adjust to the speed and physicality of the league. And then the second half of the year, he looked like a completely different player. I mean, he was really, really impressive. He's got serious upside as a shooter from outside. He's got a beautiful shot, and he's got really good playmaking ability. And there's some defensive upside. So that's a diamond in the rough that has serious potential to be a star, but he's going to need some time to work on his body and develop his craft. But those are some really intriguing wings too. Sochan, Eason. I would say Sochan might be a little bit more of like a 4 that could defend some threes. Eason has that versatility to kind of switch on to threes and stuff. But Sochan, he's kind of one of those bigger bodied rebounders to kind of be in the post, but he can guard a lot of positions and at a high level.
Yeah, the way the game's going, and we'll chop up the playoffs as well, and your team Boston doing well. But yeah, Sochan's a guy that stays on the floor in the playoffs is the point I want to make. You want a player that's evolving and just won't be played off the floor, in crunch minutes when the game is on the line. Is this a guy that the coach is going to want to have on the floor? So Jeremy Sochan, 1 to 5. I mean, that's as rare as anything. And Draymond Green's a player that stays on the floor, but I don't think he can really guard 1s and 2s. But Sochan looks like he can. Do you legitimately see Sochan guarding 1 to 5?
It eventually, I do think he has that ability. He's shown the ability to switch on to smaller, quicker guards. Like if you go back and watch his game this year when they're playing against Alabama had a backcourt that was some of the quickest players in the country. He did a good job. They always tried to bring him out to defend him, and he showed he could hold his ground. So I think he has that potential. I think that's why teams are buzzing about him, because he has the upside to be a very versatile defender. Like you're saying, a guy that will play at the end of games. Like even if it's a playoff series, you're going to want him on court in crunch time because of what an impact he makes. And we're not even talking about his playmaking ability, which is really special because he's a guy that can make a stop on defense, grab the ball, push the floor up, and just throw a dime. Like he has that upside. If he can unlock his outside shot, that's going to make him a really dangerous asset because he's got a great feel for the game.
Yeah, and we haven't mentioned this guy's name yet, Obi Toppin, Tyler. I could see Sochan and Obi Toppin interchangeable a lot, and he could make up for a bit of Obi's defensive shortcomings. And like you said, if Sochan can continue to stretch the floor, and if Obi's shot looks like it's coming along nicely towards the end of the season, those guys could be a dynamic front court.
It'll be fascinating because I think if they love someone like Sochan, they have to figure out, okay, what direction are they going to go with Julius Randle? Do they think they can move on from him? Or are they going to try to keep him around because If they try to keep him around and they draft someone like Sochan, then you're creating a logjam with those 3 type of guys. But if they maybe decide, hey, we're going to move on, and then all of a sudden you let Toppin run free while having someone like Sochan maybe behind him or playing with him on the same time at the court, that creates some real intrigue. Like you're saying, it could almost like Sochan's defense can kind of help out Toppin in that aspect. So it'll be interesting. I think definitely best player available. If Sochan was on the board at 11, they might go that route. But then they would have to have a plan of like, okay, how are we going to get him some minutes if there's a logjam? But he would be a great piece there. He's got the upside and he really plays hard. Like another guy that Knicks fans would love because he just plays high motor. He's got the dyed hair every other game, like a different color. He got the Dennis Rodman vibes. So he'd be a good one.
Yeah, in terms of we've been touching on the Knicks defensive need, Tyler, but the other need I feel like is what Malachi Branham solves. A shot creator, a bucket getter. You mentioned Julius. If the Knicks trade Julius Randle, RJ Barrett's the offense. He's going to be carrying the load. Then they need another bucket getter, which is why I could really see Malachi Branham, really, really fitting well next to RJ as well, and Cam Reddish if he gets shine. Yeah,
Malachi Branham would be the guy that would, I think, in my opinion, help someone like RJ the most, because Branham's not the most explosive guy, but he is a very tough shot maker. And I believe that's a skill. Like when you can be smothered and still score over and over and over again when guys are all over you, that is a talent. When you're getting pressured and rattled and you could still do your job at a high level, that's very good. So he would be that upside swing that Knicks fans would like, but he has the potential to be a dangerous offensive weapon, especially with RJ. I would love that fit. Another guy that would be like a bit of a shocker, but I could see some Knicks fans getting intrigued with him, and it would be a bit of a curveball, is Jaden Hardy. I think that's another guy that I've been very high on Hardy all year. I've watched him throughout the entire G League. He has so much talent because he was a guy coming in that a lot of people in the beginning of the year thought had a shot to go in the top 5. And he had some growing pains because of the jump from high school to the G League. They developed him, which a lot of people are focusing on, like, hey, he struggled as a ball handler. He had some turnovers, but that's because they were developing his game to get ready for the NBA. But if they were looking for a shooter, oh man, Hardy can, pull up from the Statue of Liberty. That's how much range he's got. So I really, really would like him. I think that would probably be like a bit of a curveball, like a humongous swing, but he can really space the floor. That would be, RJ would love him because he just catches and shoot from anywhere. He can shoot from half court.
Yep. No, I'm as high on Hardy as you are as well. So far I got him 18, but that's just because the draft is deep. But yeah, it goes back to my philosophy. I think all the dudes that play G League or an NBL, these other professional leagues, look for them to have a huge impact more immediately. I think I'm not going to just say this because, that those guys did well, but, the college game, we can overrate it a bit in terms of a player's success in the college game. When they come to the NBA, it's completely different. And I think guys they focus on the numbers too much of a guy in the NBL or in the G League, but those guys don't really necessarily have the same usage, and they're playing against bigger bodies, different schemes, all of that stuff. You have to factor that in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about Jang and guys like Jaden Hardy in the G League and the NBL, they're teenagers playing against 25, 26-year-old grown men that are physically built, and those guys are battling to just get a job at the NBA level, or the NBL's trying to make a contract, keep their basketball careers going. So it's tough. I mean, for anyone that thinks it's not, like, imagine if you're an 18-year-old and you're going up against someone in a sport that's 8 years older than you and just physically stronger than you. So it's not surprising when guys struggle. Like that's expected. And I'm right there with you, CT. Like, I think we fascinate with stats, but those guys are also going to be more ready for the curveball of the NBA game happening, because it's just the physicality, the speed. They're playing against tougher and quicker and smarter opponents sometimes. So I'm right there with you. I agree.
Yeah, I'll throw an analogy at you. Maybe it could be like that was their rookie year. Like they've had their rookie year 1 year earlier than some college guys.
I like that. That's nice. I might have to borrow that. I'll give you quotes, or references, but I like that.
Yeah, so to get the teething things out the way, and then didn't you notice guys like Usman Jiang, Jaden Hardy pop towards the end of that season? That shows they were getting more comfortable.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the most important thing, I think, especially when you're evaluating prospects or players that are about to go to the NBA, is you want to see them take those progressions throughout the year. Like when you want to see it go up, as if like, okay, the confidence is climbing, the production's climbing. And you saw that with both guys. Like they both had really tough starts to the year, but then you saw as the year went on, they showed the flashes, the development, the confidence just started pouring out of them. And they looked like completely different players. Now they're looking like guys that's like, okay, that talent is there. They just needed time to get their feet wet. And like you're saying, that might have been their rookie year. They just got their feet wet and now they're ready to go.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And it's time to put you on the clock now, Tyler, as well. So give us 3 dream fits for the Knicks. You gave us one, Malachi. At 11, we're assuming. Actually, no. Forget about even draft position. Just 3 dream fits.
I will say one of my dream fits there is Johnny Davis, because I think he's gonna play 110% every night, and he's a guy that every year, every time a team has asked him to do a specific role, he's thrived. As a freshman at Wisconsin, they were like, "We need you to be a really good defender in limited minutes." He was outstanding. As a sophomore, he came back and they were like, "We need you to carry the load offensively." And he saw his points per game jump from 7 to 20. So he's tough. And he's a kid that's like, his mindset is, no one's ever believed in me. He didn't get recruited a lot. So he's like, I'm not supposed to be here. I got to prove myself always. So he's got a boulder on his shoulder. He's trying to prove it. And I think Knicks fans would get in love with that in a hurry. And I've talked about him before. Benedict Mathurin, I think, is another one of my dream fits for the Knicks. I just really think Canadian born, him and RJ would be the Canadian brothers for the Knicks. And he's tough. He's just feisty and will battle, and he can shoot all over the place. He's a movement shooter. The Wildcats this year ran him off a ton of screens. He also can attack and finish with some nastiness. So I think my dream right there would be Mathurin, Branham, and Johnny Davis. I don't know if AJ Griffin's going to be there, but I would throw him in that conversation too.
Yeah, it's hard to see the Knicks going wrong as well. Yeah, you hit it on that. I'm agreeing with Johnny Davis too. I know the shooting, the knocks there as well, but yeah, you could get some snipers in and figure the rest out. Now let's talk about some sleepers in terms of the whole draft. You're high on Dalen Terry as well, which some friends of mine are as well, friends of the show. Him, and also talk up to us about who do you think, regardless of draft position, is just going to be a major steal or a sleeper in this draft?
I've been pretty high on Jalen Williams of Santa Clara for throughout the year, and he just had an outstanding performance at the combine and just the whole pre-draft process. He's been a popular name, but Dalen Terry is a name that I think could be the real wild card for Knicks, especially if they traded down. I could see them going back a couple spots if they didn't get their target at 11, where it's like maybe Sochan went in the top 10 and they wanted him. But Terry is a guy that Knicks fans should get intrigued with, because a lot of people thought he was going to go back to Arizona this year. And during the Pac-12 tournament, I got to see him in person. He's 6'7", lengthy. He plays with his heart on his sleeve. Like, he is all emotion. He's fired up. He defends so hard, but he's got really legit upside, special playmaking vision. And he would just be a really nice piece. Like, he's versatile, but he's got that length and size. So if they traded down, it wouldn't, I'm not saying they would draft him and all of a sudden he'd be like, oh, he's the Knicks starting point guard next year. He might take a year to fully hit his stride, but he's feisty. So that would be another guy that I'd love. Trying to look at my list, Not sure. I mean, I guess I don't know if the Knicks could get to that range. Oh, you know what? If the Knicks kept their second round pick, I could see Justin Lewis being a guy that I really like for them. He's super lengthy, 6'8". He's about 6'8", 240, but he's all muscle, and he's got that versatility to defend multiple positions, and he can shoot it from outside, but he's just nasty, and someone needs to just coach him up defensively, and then he could become a two-way kind of weapon. So I really like him. He took a huge step this year as an outside shooter, and now it's a weapon, but he's just kind of this physical freak where you're here 6'7", 240, and you're like, okay, he must be overweight. And it's like, no, he's just really strong lower body and battles. So that's a little bit of an outside name, I would say.
Yeah, nice. Yep. Yeah, for me, I love Kennedy Chandler, but
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, do you think Deuce McBride or Kennedy Chandler would have a higher upside?
I loved Deuce McBride last year as a prospect, so I would probably stick with Deuce. But I really like Kennedy Chandler too. But I just think McBride has that. He has great length and a little bit. He's a bit bigger. And I think I've said forever. I was like, I think Deuce is going to be one of those guys that he might not play a ton his rookie year, but that second year, I think he's going to be ready to roll. Like I think Knicks fans might be a little surprised next year. He's going to be a nice piece.
Yeah, did you peep some of his G League burst out performances? And he also had some fine NBA performances before he went down with COVID later in the season. It was one game, it was 16 and 16 he put up. And then he had a number of 30-point games in the G League. He just couldn't get burned. And that creates another logjam, which we'll touch on with Derrick Rose still here. The Knicks do need to pick a direction. With Derrick Rose, we know the love affair is there with Tom and the front office, but our window is just not there. Let's prioritize minutes for Deuce, because I agree with you. I think his second year is going to be huge.
Yeah, I've saw him in the G League, and I really do think he, even at West Virginia in college, he was just a guy that just makes winning plays, and he just keeps working. He got better every year. I think it was going to be one of those situations where now he had his rookie year. Now he's going to have a full off season. He's going to be ready to go. He's going to be like, I'm going to contend. I'm going to earn some serious minutes. They just got a little bit of logjam everywhere. Like the Knicks they got to figure out what direction they want to go in, and they might be in a position where they're like, hey, let's get the best player available and figure it out this summer after the draft. But I still think, Quickly, Deuce, those are guys that have the ability to be really important pieces next year. I love Derrick Rose. I know, like you say, like the love affair with Thibodeau, but we'll see what direction they go, because I think McBride's going to be ready to be a bigger piece of the puzzle for the Knicks this year than I think a lot of people are expecting. I'm rooting for him. I really like his game.
Yeah, me too. And Knick fans do too. Two-way guy. That's how winning's done. And I want to get your thoughts on two other Knicks with a uncertain future, Cam Reddish and Mitchell Robinson. I'll start with Mitch. With what he brings and his game and where it's grown, 15 mil is the rumor, maybe 12 to 15 mil. If you're running the Knicks, how do you value Mitch's game, and would you spend that money on Mitch?
Wow, you're gonna put me out as an enemy for all the Mitch Robinson fans. No, he has he has.
Knick fans go back and forth themselves over.
I hear you. I mean, I do it with
right
every fan base, so I get it. He's tough because I think Mitchell has the talent to be a really good piece. I think he's had some injury concerns. Obviously, that front office is going to have more information behind the scenes, but if it's a guy that's piled up on some injuries and you've been dealing with kind of trying to keep him healthy, whether it's, putting on weight, losing weight each year as conditioning, 15 million could get up there. That could be a big number, because if you give that number and that's per year, and
you have to pay RJ and Cam in 1 year's time,
it adds up. So, I mean, if they think, hey, Mitchell might be too expensive to keep around, they're in a territory where they could get a cheaper version. They also could try to get a pick later in the draft. There's some bigs in this draft. Free agency, you could always find a guy too. So it's going to be fascinating to see what direction they could go. I love Mark Williams. I think that's my, wild card there. And it's a lot of people will be like, oh, we don't want to take a big there at 11, but
Yeah.
Mark Williams is going to be a dang good player for a long time. Like I would say it won't shock me if all of a sudden they're
Wow.
like, hey, Mitchell, we're going to go another direction. We might go with Mark Williams, and you save all that money. And I don't know. I get when Mitchell's rolling, he's special, but it's just you got to keep him healthy and keep him on the court. So it's going to be fascinating to see what direction they go.
Yeah, they could look, I really want to keep Mitch too, but I think maybe they'll look to a shorter term deal. But I think what's going to work against the Knicks is just the competition. There's Detroit, there's Charlotte, there's going to be one team willing to probably outbid, and that's a team that's not really on the clock. They've got plenty of time. They're not hampered salary wise. Whereas the Knicks, do have to pay RJ. They have to figure out what they're going to do with Randall's money as well. But yeah, another Knicks draft friend of the show, Rafael Barlow, in his latest mock had Mark Williams to the Knicks. That got a bit of heat. It makes sense in terms of the Knicks save money. They replace Mitch and they replace him with someone cheaper as well. I just want to either see the Knicks re-sign Mitch to keep him as an asset and worry about it later, or sign and trade him so that we don't lose him for nothing. The worst case scenario would be to lose Mitch for nothing.
Yeah, it's always the dangerous part of going in the offseason with a guy that's potentially supposed to be a free agent, and you want to try to at least get something if you're going to lose him. It'll be fascinating because, like you said, there's two big name bigs for free agency this year with DeAndre Ayton and Mitchell. So if someone gets Ayton and they get a sign and trade or whatever from the Suns, someone else might try to be like, we can't lose out on both, so we might need to pay Mitchell. So it'll be interesting. But obviously the Knicks are going to have to make a decision before that, because they're going to have to figure like, what direction do we want to go? Maybe it's Jalen Duren or Mark Williams. If they are like, hey, we might lose him, let's get some insurance in case we do. But they're also going to be looking at the free agent market in case the nightmare happens where they don't draft a big, they might target a wing, and maybe Mitchell Robinson leaves and they're like, hey, this is our backup option. You never really know.
Yeah, I love Mitch's game, but I always go back to what I said earlier with the playoffs. If Mitchell Robinson is on Boston, if he's on the Warriors, does he stay on the court right now? He can't shoot a free throw. If he wants to get paid, he has to, and play on and stay on the court. He has to shoot free throws at least, I think. So yeah, Mitch, I'm high on him, but he needs to improve his game. And Cam Reddish, Tyler, as well. We talked about a lot of the wings in this draft. We have a wing. I think it was a really good trade the Knicks swung to get something for Kevin Knox and a weak first round pick to get Cam Reddish in. He hardly played because Tom Thibodeau wasn't a fan of the trade at all, which is a whole nother show we could do about the coach and the front office getting on the same page.
Right.
But Cam Reddish, what can you see his future in New York? Best case scenario, worst case scenario, would you see another wing in this draft that should just take over his spot, or give him that chance this season?
It'll
be contract here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I still think he's got so much talent. He's 22 years old still. Like it's not like he's 28. But it's going to be fascinating to see what direction they go in, because I still think he has so much talent. He just got to be more consistent, because like even when he was with Atlanta, Reddish would have these 2-week or 3-week streaks of just being on fire, and you're like, oh boy, okay, Cam Reddish, the confidence, it's all the pieces are clicking now in his mind, like he's just coming together, and then it would just come back down. I thought when the Knicks traded for him, I thought it was a sensational move. I was like, man, they got a real good, lottery ticket, if you want to say, like something that is just, they barely paid anything to get him. And then all of a sudden now you have this raw tool to develop. So I was a little shocked that they didn't play him more. And you never really know what's going on behind the scenes. You could hear one thing from another source. You could hear one thing from another. It'll be interesting because I definitely think he's got that talent, but that'll be telling in the draft. Like if it would, whatever direction they go, it's going to be telling, because it's either going to be like, well, is this what they think of, Reddish, or is this what they think of Mitchell Robinson? So it's going to be fascinating. There's more storylines.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the potential is always going to be there, and I compare that to like the walking bucket. Favorite player, Michael Beasley. He's just, or even as a 30-year-old, you see a Cam Reddish game where he'll just look like he just is the best player on the court for a couple of minutes and puts up 30. That talent's never going to elude Cam Reddish. It's about feel for the game. It's about injuries, and Tarek's comment is reminds him of Humpty Dumpty. That's a good one. Salute. And point guard spot, Tyler, as well. Manuel Quickly, you're pretty high on him as well. It looks like the Knicks may not get a point guard in this draft. So I'm okay personally with Quickly starting the season, just seeing where it takes us. We have time. I know Tom Thibodeau doesn't have time, but from a fan base perspective, I think it's the right move.
Yeah, I'd like to see him at least get some run as the team's point guard. I think it's a tough year for point guards in this draft. It's not great. It really is, and it's not taken away from those kids. It's just the star power. Like, there's not a lot of potential franchise point guards. That's just going to be years to come, like your starting point guard. There's good depth. Like, there's guys that might go later in the first round. Kennedy Chandler, Ty Washington was a name that was really popular kind of the beginning of the draft cycle. Yeah. I think he's kind of cooling off, maybe going to go more towards the late teens or early 20s. They can play. They have some good tools to be really nice pieces. I just don't really think they're going to be the long-term resolution for some teams when it comes to that. Dyson Daniels is probably the best guy in the point guard class, one of those, because he's got that size and stuff. So I hear you. I think you got to go with Quickly. If they get someone like Jalen Brunson in free agency, I would absolutely love that. I love how Brunson plays. I think he's one of the more underrated guys in this league when it comes to backcourt players. So it's going to be interesting, especially with the draft. If they feel good about getting Brunson potentially, like you said earlier, they got to figure out the log jams everywhere. So could be a lot of moves this year. Could be a very exciting offseason for the Knicks.
It's a position that hasn't been filled for like 2 decades.
Yeah, exactly.
I know Derek Rose filled in admirably 2 seasons ago when the Knicks were the 4th seed. That was beautiful. That was a great year. But yeah, like you said, a shout out to your show on the point guards as well. I know that was a tougher show to do with your colleague. Salute you guys for doing that. And you gave up almost at the 8th. 9th, 10th spot, and
it was tough.
We haven't even mentioned Ty.
Right,
you said Ty, and he was higher on my board throughout the college season. But yeah, it's just amazing. I'm not even talking to him. I'm 1 hour and 20 minutes into a show, but I do think he's getting a bit underrated at this point. It's almost like he's getting forgotten.
He has really good tools to be a nice piece. I just think when it comes to the Knicks taking him at 11, that would be way rich for me, because if they loved him and traded back and got, maybe they traded back to 19 and got a future first round pick also. And then they said, hey, we're going to get Ty at 19. I'd be like, okay, they're a believer of Ty Washington. They're all in on that. I understand it. But 11, I think there's too many other intriguing pieces that the Knicks could add with higher upside. Ty's got great feel. He can shoot it. He just doesn't have that multiple gears burst that most point guards need. He struggles with finishing sometimes. So it's not like there's not good point guards in this class. There's just not that star upside that some other classes have.
Yep. And I'll give you 5 point guard names for the Knicks, and I want you to rank them according to what you think is the best. So you got Quickly. I'll throw Brunson, Colin Sexton, De'Aaron Fox, and Scary Terry, just because I think they're the most attainable.
I still think. Well, I love Colin Sexton, but I still think somehow the Cavs are going to keep him. But I still think Brunson. I've said all year. I said if the Knicks could go get Jalen Brunson, they should go get Jalen Brunson, because he's what that team needs. He's composed. He can play. He's really good at just putting his team in the right position. I mean, you talk back in college when playing at Villanova, he's a floor general. He's what the Knicks would need, some consistency. Now, I know all the Emmanuel Quickly fans out there are going to be passionate and be like, come on, Quickly. But I still think Brunson is that would be a big piece to get in for the Knicks fans. Like he knows how to play. He's very, very underrated. He's a good player. I still think Sexton's probably staying in Cleveland. He's not going to go anywhere. But
yeah, I've been hearing.
Yeah, and I really like Brunson. The Sacramento with De'Aaron Fox is going to be very interesting because something's going to go on there, especially if they take Jaden Ivey at 4. Something's going to happen. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. No, I appreciate that. And the chat's buzzing. Throw any questions in there. We're with Tyler.
Trying
Rucker.
To see them.
Yep. And they're buzzing. And we've chopped up the draft. Is there anything we haven't talked about this draft that you want to get your own personal thoughts out there? What is your overall reaction heading in with 20 days away, ladies and gentlemen? Get excited.
It's unbelievable. No, I mean, it's just this is going to be a really fun class we're talking about. Like, I really think there's some intriguing options all over the place. We didn't talk about Keegan Murray. I don't think he's going to be on the board at 11, but like there's a lot of names that could go ahead of where the Knicks are picking to kind of make the Knicks in a good spot. Sochan could be there. Dieng, we've talked about a lot of guys that the Knicks are going to have a real shot. And then when we get to that second round selection, what we were talking about earlier, there's a chance that 25 to 45, there's going to be some names still on the board that are really intriguing value in the second round. So it's going to be a fun draft. There's going to be a lot of, I think, surprises and curveballs, and teams might be moving all over the place. You never know.
Yep. Trades. I see big trades happening, moving back and forth, teams consolidating, and the Knicks may be there. We have the Dallas pick. It may not be valuable next season with where Dallas are trending. And the New York Knicks hired Jalen Brunson's father. We need to touch on that. Rick Brunson is the assistant coach as well. Tyler, did you hear that? And what was your reaction to that with Jalen Brunson being a free agent? And we know Knicks executives were courtside at the playoffs, the game one. Allen Houston, funnily enough, which people don't know, was Jalen Brunson's idol growing up.
I love that. I didn't know that. See, I'm learning something coming on the show. I love it. I think a lot of people were overreacting when it came to the news, but it's like I know he's had some ties and connections to the Knicks in the past when it comes to like Toppin or whatever it was, like training them. But yeah, it's exciting to get play detective mode and try to figure out what's going on. I still just think Brunson, I know Knicks fans might get a little nervous about how much he would cost, but he's just a dang good basketball player. He would really help that team. It's such a young team still. There's so much youth. Brunson has that mentality, that composure to just be a leader and get everyone in the right position. And he could play. Luka went down for a while this year and Brunson went crazy. He was putting up really big numbers. So, I still think, I've said it all along, if they could get him, they should go get him because he can just play, and he has always been an underrated guy in this league.
Yeah, I agree. But it remains to be seen. All the word is that Cuban is going to fork out. He's gonna back up the truck and keep. How could you not? To make the Western Conference Finals, it's just an outstanding season for Dallas out there, and I just want to say also, like I said earlier in the show, follow Tyler Rucker on Twitter. You see the handle there, No Ceilings, doing amazing work this season. It's only been your first season, am I correct? Covering this draft.
First season. So it's been a wild ride, and thank you so much, CT, for having me on, and to all the Knicks fans and everyone in the chat. Thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been awesome, and I'm rooting for the Knicks. I'm rooting for them to get a good one, and after the draft, if you want to talk draft and talk about how we're feeling, just let me know. I'll be running back.
Absolutely. Yeah, the invite's already in your inbox. So, and your colleagues as well, if they're welcome, always to come on. And like I said, I watch all your shows, appreciate your knowledge, that the way you guys respect each team, and you chop up, from a fan's perspective, what you really want to, what you really think that team should do to improve, and you give your honest thoughts. And ladies and gentlemen, it's just a great follow. No Ceilings on Twitter, follow on YouTube as well. Show the love as well. And Tyler, we'll chop it up again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And yeah, everyone listening, we're at No Ceilings NBA on Twitter and NoCeilingsNBA.com. So we appreciate the support and getting excited for the draft. We got 20 days. It's a beautiful time of the year.
Yep, absolutely. Counting down. Let's get it, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be fun, and we'll chop it up soon. See you soon. Peace.